Welcome to Immigration Insider with your host, attorney John Nicelli. This podcast is an educational forum on how to deal with complex aspects of immigration and pitfalls to avoid. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, johnnicelli.com. Now here's the host of Immigration Insider, attorney John Nicelli.
Good morning, everyone. I'm speaking to you from New York City, and I would like to ask some questions. Has anyone been in deportation proceedings, or do you know anyone that's in deportation or removal proceedings and is fearful of being removed from the United States? Perhaps you have a relative, a friend that's very fearful of being deported from this country after they've been here many years. Well, there are solutions to this problem. And one of the solutions to this problem is for those people who have been here for many years, specifically over 10 years, and have relatives in the United States who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents of the United States. Specifically, either spouses that are residents or citizens, children under 21 who are residents or citizens, or parents who are residents or citizens of the United States. There's a relief that you can file for called non-lawful permanent residence cancellation of removal. And what that means, in order to qualify, you have to be in removal proceedings and you'd have to see an immigration judge. Now, I'm not going to get into all the issues involved in getting in removal proceedings, so we'll assume for today's podcast that you're already in proceedings, which would mean that you have to face an immigration judge at some point, and you have to tell the judge why it's important that you remain in the United States here with your family. So in order to qualify for this relief, you'd have to be physically present in the United States for at least 10 years. You have to be of good moral character. You have to be basically not convicted of any serious offenses, such as many drug offenses. And you have to demonstrate to an immigration judge that if you were to be removed from the United States and return to your country, that it would cause exceptional and unusual hardship on your family members. And as I said, those family members would be your children, your spouse, or your parents, and the children must be under 21. So there are limits to this relief, and it's often difficult to obtain, but it's not impossible to obtain because of the standard that's involved. Many people don't properly prepare their cases, unfortunately, and I've had many cases where people have actually been deported by immigration judges, appealed their cases and lost, and have actually been able to reopen their cases because the cases were never prepared properly to begin with. First and foremost, you have to demonstrate the qualifications. And I'm going to go over each of those. Basically, you have to show continuous physical presence for at least 10 years. Now, that means you're here 10 years without leaving the United States. The exceptions to the law would be that you could leave even multiple times if you don't leave for more than 90 days. So if you leave for 90 days continuous, okay, so say if a family member is sick, or you went to a wedding, or you went to a funeral, whatever it may be, and you left for 90 days, then you're ineligible for cancellation of removal. However, if you left the United States for 30 days, and you left the United States for 30 days on 5 occasions, then you only accumulated 150 days of being out of the United States. As long as you've been out of the United States less than 180 days during that 10-year period, you would be eligible for cancellation of removal, which is a very big distinction because many people don't know that. And a lot of people leave because, maybe their child is sick or their parent is sick or someone died or some other reason. And unfortunately, they hurt themselves by leaving in such emergencies if they stay out of the country for more than 90 days for a continuous period, or more than 180 days in a cumulative amount of time. So what would happen then if you come back and you're not caught, then you would have to basically start that 10 years all over again. But as I said, there's many little things that need to be addressed regarding the trips, but that's the basic rules. Okay, now if you get stopped at the border and then you remain in and you stay in the United States for 10 years, you never go to court. Well, once you're stopped at the border and the Border Patrol puts you in proceedings to be removed from the United States, which would lead to your deportation, then you're not eligible for cancellation of removal because you never accumulated 10 years time, even though you're in the United States for 10 years. That's also a difficult concept to understand, but basically the basics are if you got stopped when you arrived, that cuts off your time to apply for cancellation of removal 10 years later. And many people are deported as a result of being stopped, like at the Texas border, at the Arizona border, and the California border. It's quite common. They don't even realize they're in deportation proceedings. The Border Patrol speaks to them. They don't understand. They may not have a translator or for the language that they're speaking. I've had that happen many times. And as a result, they get deported. And even if you were to reopen their case for some reason, they're still not going to be eligible for cancellation of removal because they were put in proceedings at the time of their entry into the United States. Now, basically, you have to be a person of what they call good moral character, meaning that you've been a person that doesn't get in trouble, you mind your business, you pay your taxes, you do whatever you have to do, you raise your children the right way, they stay out of trouble, everything that like a normal American family should do. But if you've committed certain offenses, such as drug offenses, you sold heroin, for example, well, chances are you're not going to be eligible for cancellation of removal. There are also many, many other offenses which would bar you from cancellation of removal, none of which I'm going to get into today, except for one. One is called a bar is called a high-speed flight from an immigration checkpoint. So let's say you're going to, you're crossing the border and immigration sees you and you see them and you start running, or you drive away from them and they're chasing you. So if immigration has to chase you, you will never be eligible for cancellation of removal. And it's possible they chased you and got away, and you got away and stayed there 10 years. But if anyone ever found out that they chased you, you are not going to be eligible for cancellation of removal. So basically, you have to be what is a person of good moral character. You show that you've not involved in any crimes, you do the right thing, you go to work, you go to church, you're active in your community, you may have done community service for different things, for whether it be a church or a local organization, a voluntary organization that does charitable work and things like that. So, and that's always discretionary because it's the judge who's going to determine, as a matter of discretion, if you meet the standard of good moral character. That often is a big issue because people have minor arrests and maybe shoplifting, or maybe they have an arrest such as drunk driving, for example, driving without licenses. Those are little problems, but they so often become big problems depending on the circumstances. But the main thing that you have to prove is what they call exceptional and unusual hardship. And that exceptional and unusual hardship must be demonstrated based on the needs of your children who are under 21 years old. If your children are over 21 years old, you don't qualify for cancellation of removal. The only way you would qualify is if you have a spouse who's a resident or citizen, or you have parents who are residents or citizens. What's very important is that you must show what the hardship is to your children, or to your parent, or to your spouse. And that hardship varies. Hardship is really not a definable term because it encompasses so many things. But the basics is an immigration judge will consider the age of the children, your age, your health, the health of your children. Do your children have any special needs in school? The length of residence in the United States. Perhaps you're here 30 years, so that that can make a big difference. Your family or community ties in the United States. Any ties you have to your home country. Maybe you're in close contact with members of your home country. You're in a political party in your home country. Well, that would be a negative factor. And what are the circumstances in your home country right now? Are they had a war? Is there a lot of poverty there? What's the crime level there? What's the political issue there? What's the language spoken there? Many, many issues. And for example, and before I get to that, and also, do you have any other means of becoming a resident other than through the process of cancellation of removal? So one of the things that judges consider very seriously is the health of your minor children. So if your children have a very serious medical condition, such as leukemia, for example, well, it would depend on what level of care that your children are receiving and how really sick they are. So what you have to do in cases like that is demonstrate that not only your children are being treated well in the United States with the state-of-the-art healthcare, but how would their health be affected if you were forced to leave the United States? And would you leave the children here to continue their care without you? Is that possible? Probably not going to be possible, because no one's going to be taking the burden of a child who's sick. And also, is that health care that they're getting, state-of-the-art health care, available in the country you're going to? For example, let's say you're from Central or South America, or mostly Central America, where crime is rampant and healthcare leaves a lot to be desired. Well, if you have a child that has a very serious illness, they're not likely to be treated in the same exact manner as they're being treated here in the United States. So that would definitely be an issue that a judge would have to decide whether it is something to consider, which would be extreme and unusual hardship. There are many, many other issues involved. The same would apply to a spouse or parents. If your spouse is ill, if your parents are elderly, do your parents have any special needs? Are there medicines available? Are they going to leave the country if you leave the country? Is there anyone to care for them in your absence? All of these factors are taken into consideration. Most of the time when we do these cases, there are probably at least 1,000 pages of documents. And the reason why we submit so many documents, because we cover all the aspects of why you should be granted cancellation of removal and you should not be returned to your country, and why your children must remain in the United States, just as you need to stay here, as well as your parents or your spouse. It is critically important to demonstrate so many things, and there's no shortcuts to winning a case like that. I will be doing other podcasts with other issues regarding immigration, but for today, I just wanted to limit it to cancellation of removal, because there are many people who are in removal proceedings who don't know what to do, who are very fearful of being removed from the United States, and rightly so. And this is a benefit that they can apply for, and if it's done properly, they will win. All right, so you have to meet the criteria, and I say good luck to anyone. If you need help, please feel free to call me at any time. Our office hours are generally 9 to 5. We're here on Saturdays, every other Saturday. Telephone number is 212-227-8020. That's area code 212-227-8020. If you can send us an email at Nicelli or john@johnnicelli.com, we will be happy to answer emails, make an appointment to see us. If nothing else, you can do a consultation and find out if you do qualify. And as I said, good luck to everyone who is in deportation or removal proceedings. And if we can help, we will help you. Thank you.
You've been tuning into Immigration Insider with your host, attorney John Nicelli. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, johnnicelli.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.